Okay. Hello, everyone. Um, I'm Rangadad, and this is just the way I'm looking at the market. Um, Today, I just wanted to start a bit wider. Um, I know it's 5 days late, but obviously we closed a monthly a few days ago. Um, and I guess I just wanted to frame the discussion of what's happening at the moment based on what's happened through history. Um, this was the initial pump after the bottom of the bear market lows after the 2018 2017 run 2017 run. um, we didn't get as much of a pump as what we have in the current one, but obviously the macro environment was a bit different. So before the COVID lows and all the issues happened with COVID, we were actually on a pretty big downtrend, right? Top to bottom there, 53%. And technically, it had reclaimed the middle of this vector candle, which is kind of what you would expect as a target. And then COVID obviously dumped it down and really changed the game there. But the reason I show that is every time we've had vector candles on the monthly, it has actually come back into them. Um, the only real exception is the COVID low, and this ones, I guess, but I'm not expecting it to come back there. But for the most part, you get a pretty good retracement of most of the vectors. So it's just interesting because this level here would reclaim most of the unclaimed vectors on the way up. So do we come a little bit lower like we did here into this one? Maybe. But if we come down in a big way over the next month or two, and there is a chance we get a reasonable correction still, that would be around the 42%. Not unheard of, not out of the question for Bitcoin at all, especially given the market and the general sentiment seems to be capitulating a bit as well. Interesting that it's flagging a sell signal, this indicator as well. Obviously, we're early in this month, but that's already a pretty big down month. Doesn't mean it can't go bigger though. You look at some of these monthly candles, 35% down, 37%, one's 43% up. You can get some pretty big movements. The other, coming down to the weekly, is also interesting because we're a bit closer to closing this one, about 3 days off. Stochastic momentum is quite, like, he's headed down. There's a fair bit of downward momentum on this indicator as well, suggesting we do see more downside. Do we see it straight away? I'd argue probably not, but I'll tell you why in a little bit. Um, whoops. Oh, crap. For some reason, fucking Google wants me to sign into the chat all of a sudden. Bear with me a sec. It's going to try and make me remember my password. In a sec. Okay. Yes. Oh, Jesus. Google, what a pain in the ass. There we go. All I tried to do was put an emoji on your post there, Joshua. That made me re-log into the whole thing. Anyway, back to the what's happening. So I think crypto is giving a bit of hope here at the moment, but realistically, that 41 and a half, sorry, 51 and a half to 50, you're going to hit the 50 EMA there on the weekly. That seems like a likely target from this point. But ultimately, it would seem like we're coming into at least this 41K mark eventually. Not huge volumes still through this period either. And I guess, if you're looking at this saying, oh, well, we've already dropped 7%, probably not going to drop much more in this week. When sentiment is shit, you can get some pretty decent drops. So don't necessarily think that this will be the end of it. I really, it's looking more and more like this is the target down here. And one of the things I was looking at earlier, I was looking at it on the daily, come back into the daily. If you look at this as sort of a double top or a range breakout, if we do break out of this range and it's no break, at the moment, I wouldn't say it is because we haven't cleared this 200 EMA. And we're sitting right at the bottom of this daily close here. So it's not looking great. It's teetering. But if we do break out of this range, let's do it wick to wick. Talking a target is actually around that 43K. Okay. So range breakouts do tend to move at least the height of the range in either direction. Okay. So if we break out to the top side of this, you would expect us to go to there, 96K. So best case scenario, we find a bottom here, or even potentially, let's zoom in a bit. Potentially we just come down here a little bit, clean up some liquidity, get into that maybe 55, 55 and a half range, bit of a bear trap, and then we work our way up. Now, I expect this to be a grind up, but if we do grind up with a few bounces and then break out, timing wise, it's probably going to work out well if we do get that pump into the election, which is fairly typical. And then basically that would lead us into that 90. And we'd probably have the momentum to do it at that point. But it's going to be a grind up and got to climb the wall of worry, as they say. Now, is that the most likely scenario? Looking at it at the moment, I'd say not. Do we find some support here? Potentially, and the shorter time frames are suggesting we may. But just know stochastic momentum has just turned to the downside. Typically, on the higher time frame, you don't necessarily get it flip-flopping too much. Through here, we did a bit. Quick look there. So that was more of a grind up situation, and you did see it flip-flopping. there's a little bit of a flip flop here as well, but generally you need to be above that midline on stochastic momentum to really be bullish here, I think, with a decent turn up. The other thing that was interesting was the amount of volume. Typically, you do see at the start of these runs, like they generally start on low volume. Okay. And people start to get interested, people start really piling in. Like that's a full bull run. Generally through the same sort of area that we're in at the moment. And I think we're sort of more in this area here in terms of the bull run, certainly within this region. Yeah, volume can be quite low through that area. And that's sort of where we're sitting. So it doesn't, like it's not looking like we're going to new all-time highs here. And typically we don't break out to a bull run on any stock really from the highs, especially after going on that 350% run. Typically you will get some correction and some pullback, but that's just kind of, I guess, hearsay and just some observational stuff. It's not necessarily quantifiable stuff. The quantifiable stuff is basically seems to want to hold above this 200 EMA. If we close below that, even probably on a 4-hour time frame, to be honest, which doesn't show, something similar. Even the 1 hour and the 4 hour don't have really EMAs holding up anymore. 1 hour looks like it's just come in to retest this low here, but it could actually break back into this level. Yeah, I think it's probably going to come down to Asia again, to be honest. They seem to be holding keys lately, backed up a bit by Europe. The US doesn't seem to be doing much apart from taking it sideways at the moment. So, bigger time frames, we still don't have any sort of confirmation that there's any buying interest, big time buying interest. Stochastic momentum is starting to tick up on the 4 hour. We're still in the critical zone though, the bearish zone. And there is a bit of divergence here. A low compared to this low here, or even that low there on the stochastic, suggests that there's a bit of bullish divergence there. So potentially finding a bit of support. How long that will last is another. So what the market will tend to try and do is a bit like what it did here, give a bit of a run up, possibly back into these sort of levels here, so about the 61, 61.5, and then dump further. You want to try and suck in as many people to go long as you can before going short. Okay? That's just kind of the way the markets work. So let's go. I'm just going to go and keep on Bitcoin for a sec. For those that are interested, that I was talking to the other day, anyway, the bot is designed to work on breakouts. and there's a lot of confirmations on what constitutes a breakout. This one here, I thought it was actually going to take a trade, but then I realized the Bollinger Bands were still contracting. So generally, when the Bollinger Bands are contracting, any sort of breakouts are false breakouts. This one here is interesting because we've still got a bit of Bollinger Band contraction, but it's contracting to a point where they're quite close together, the Bollinger Bands, and it's potentially going to break out soon. The one thing that I haven't programmed in yet, which I will be, is sometimes we get a fake signal, and it's rare. Like, you know, short stop loss, full stop loss gets hit 6% of the time at the moment, but it does happen, and it's more susceptible to areas like this where you got low liquidity, so the market can pump. And they say the bear rises before it strikes, and the bull bows before it charges. And that's basically what happened here. We don't use the 200 EMA as confluence for an entry. We actually use an 88 EMA. So we were above that. There was volume, there's expansion in the Bollingers, but it was a fake out. It was the market just sucking in a bit more liquidity before dropping, and it dropped hard. So I will be coding in a bit of protection for this, just time-based, because sometimes you do get movements below the Bollinger before it actually takes off in the direction we want. So you've got to be careful that you don't completely change the way the whole strategy works, and you end up faking out your fake outs. But obviously that was a pretty unfortunate trade, that one. It's almost made up for it since then, but yeah, that's essentially what it's designed to do. It's designed to try and catch proper breakouts. So in terms of where we're at on the 15-minute chart, as I said, it looks like it's coming back into this sort of region here where there is a bit of interest. It is going to be a resistance level. On the 15-minute, it actually looks like forming another top, another double top like we did the other day. Do we see more downside from here? Potentially. I think with the 4th of July holiday, Asia may try and move the markets again. It seems to be moving them when the US is asleep. In which case I'm a little worried about this scenario at the moment. But yeah, this is kind of, it's hovering above that 200 EMA there. So be very interesting day to see what actually happens. The one thing I was going, oh yeah, so heat maps. Just refresh this again. So just based on the 30-day liquidation map, where we're sitting now, you know, you're down around the 54. Let's say we go down to the 51K mark. You got 1.26 billion worth of liquidations there. Not a hell of a lot. You only have to go up to 59K, 60K, let's say, round numbers, before you hit 1.25 billion worth of liquidation. So the market tends to move where it can get too easiest. There will be a squeeze if we sort of make it past about the 59K mark, I think. If we start squeezing this liquidity in here, then it should pretty quickly go to that 59.5, bit under 60K mark. So I know thought that might be the case the other day as well, but it's just the liquidity down here is really low at the moment, which could also mean we drop quicker because there's just no buyers. It's nothing. The only reason I'm thinking maybe we go higher sooner is one we've pumped a little bit. We're already in this zone here. 58.9 would suck up a lot of liquidity. Just in the last day, there have been a lot of people going long, and that's kind of what it wants you to do. It wants to show that, okay, we're going long, so everyone puts on their longs and all their stop losses are down around here, and then it gets enough positions opened that it then says, okay, let's take, we can go down. So, that's just an interesting confluence, I guess, to what's happening at the moment. But look, there is a lot of vector candles up to about that 60K mark. I don't know that it'll go super quick up to that level, but it wouldn't surprise me to have a pullback just because we're hitting that 200 EMA on the daily. Like, it would kind of make sense. And again, big red candle with a big red wick, we're most likely coming back down to that level. Whether it's next day like this, where we have a wick come down, basically tidy up a lot of that liquidity and push to the upside, or whether we just have a straight bounce more like this, where we sort of bounce and grind sideways before we probably come into the 20 EMA on the daily, to be honest, and then have further downside. This doesn't have to happen all at once or soon. Bitcoin doesn't necessarily play ball the way you think it will, but the way it's been going, it wouldn't surprise me if we do have it in the next couple of days. So I'm sort of realistically, I don't. I hold a little bit of Bitcoin. Most of my cash is in the trading accounts at the moment, running on the 5-minute bot. So 5 and 15-minute bot. And at the moment, in times like this, it's kind of the best place for it. I need to be seeing more signs of an actual turnaround into a bull than what I'm seeing at the moment. I did convert a little bit. I think it was down around here into BTC just because I thought it was a reasonable spot. But yeah, generally it's trying to move up. Just need to interesting. This will probably open along on this candle. If it closes as a vector, which it looks like it's going to, it'll probably open here. Not an ideal spot for it, to be honest. It's coming into that resistance level. But I've got to let the bot do bot things because it's right 80+% of the time. So I would expect that to have a little bit of retrace if it does open along though. It'll come back down and grind a little bit before we see the proper move. I suspect that's based on the way I would normally expect the market to move in this situation. These here are smooth Heikin-Ashi candles. It is good that we've closed above them as well. I may be bringing them into the bots in the future as well, just as confluence. So we only take shorts when we're below them, longs when we're above them. Seems like it would be a reasonable play. But That's a lot of coding and testing. Yeah, so we did take a long there. And surprise, surprise, it's right at the top. Not too worried about this one though. I think that's a pretty reasonable close. Oh, the other interesting thing for those that do want to sort of manually trade this stuff, don't enter or exit a trade in the middle of a candle unless that candle has a ton of volume. If the volume's clearing the previous candle before it's halfway through, I wouldn't be exiting it. Just because what you tend to see if you sit there and watch like a 5 minute candle, even this seems to be the case on most time frames, most candles. About halfway through the candle, you will see a retrace. And if we go to the 15 minute, so 15 minute, this is actually showing a bit of a retrace. It wouldn't surprise me if we actually come back up here and close positive. Tends to be in the last third that you do actually see it come back in the direction that it originally went. So, we've come down pretty hard. I'm expecting this to push back up a bit. And then by the last minute, minute and a half of this candle, you'll see the proper direction that it wants to go. But typically when you are opening on a vector, you would expect some sort of retracement of that if it's going to push higher. Okay, it tends to want to suck up a bit of that liquidity in there before going. The fact that we've got another one here, it wouldn't surprise me if we came back into the top of these Bollingers. What we want to watch out for is if we're closing on the bottom of these, we're closing on the other side of the Bollingers after a lot of volume. That's when it's probably going to go the other way. So I'm actually going to just keep an eye out for that in the future for the bot. Anyway, I think I haven't done any of the stocks, but Nasdaq still new highs, looking strong. This one here is actually an equal weight Nasdaq. It hasn't broken to new highs yet. The last time we had that on the S&P equal weight, we've sort of gone sideways and down since then. So something to keep in mind. Equal weight S&P is kind of flat still. So it's just showing you that these little pumps and stuff, it's just money moving around. Still haven't closed. Oh, it looks like it's going to just close above the high for the Nvidia. What's that? 128.12. Yeah, it looks like it's just going to clear these candles, or just did actually. Sorry, we have closed the US market. So that's interesting. Like that will be making a lot of people think that Nvidia is going to go higher. Not getting when stochastic momentum's turning up. Nasdaq's going up. Can't really fight the trend too much. That's sort of the only caveat is not all stocks are going up. So IWM's flat still. But still, it looks like an unhealthy market. Like it looks crook as. It's VIX is up a tiny bit. The skew's still going up though. Skew's still supporting a bit of a run. Just keep that in mind. It looks like it's trying to fake out a bit of a bear trap at the moment. Copper is suggesting that there's strength. Copper tends to go up when the economy is going well, in inverted commas. Gold is looks like it's basing a reasonable amount. We need to start clearing some of these wicks here though for me to get excited. We clear above the Gaussian channel. That's pretty positive. Silver, pretty similar. Silver is clearing that channel. Interesting. Japanese yen looks like there's some intervention starting here, so keep an eye out for that. Not big movements like they typically do though, so see how that plays out. It could just be because if we look at Dixie, the US dollar is just dropping. So that will generally lift the other currencies. Oh, the Aussie dollar's broken out of the range. Aussie dollar probably come back up into the 68.5 mark. That's good. Might not convert some dollars yet. And money supply. Brazilian real has found a bit of support there. Not just a bit, that's a fair bounce. Again, probably off the back of a weakening US dollar, but just be careful. It's hitting that 20 EMA there on the daily, so might find a bit of resistance, and the US dollar may actually find some support here where it is. Looks like it's just sort of recovering a bit of that wick. It is closing below the 50 though. So did make a lower high there on this longer time frame, so it's looking like more dollar weakness at the moment. 2-year, 10-year, found a little bit of a bounce, but looks like it's rolling over again. Mainly because the 2 years coming down, breaking below the 200 EMA there, which has been support quite a bit. That might come down to 4.5. So looks like the market is expecting rates to come down, or it doesn't think the economy is particularly healthy. 10 years still coming down though too, so a little bit of a bounce in the stocks above the 50-day moving average, but still no clear direction from this at all. Global liquidity is still going down. Oil has come back up and is retesting that 800 EMA. Geez, a break above this wick here, you would think oil's going higher and the stock market down, but so far oil's been going up at the same time as some of the stock market. Anyway, Mag 7 flat on the day. Interesting. That was up on yesterday. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, if we go to BTC longs, people are still buying here as well. It's kept going. I did notice too that ETH, sorry, BTC short still in BTC USD shorts are not as good an indicator of bonds, in my opinion. You can get spikes, but tends to be people going short a bit late. Nice. find the BTC longs is a much more reasonable indicator. That's about it, really. BTC dominance has picked up a little bit, but into yeah. It looks like, I mean, on the hourly, it looks like finding a bit of bottom here, mainly supported by that CCO. Settings I use are a bit, I think the standard settings, but 105. Actually use that on 10. Yeah, so suggesting a bit of support here. If this CCI indicator gets over 0 as well, then that's typically a pretty good sign. We're probably going to be at about that 60K mark before that happens. And by then, hopefully, we would actually have a bit of support on this as well. So this indicator here would potentially be showing us a bit of interest. Definitely not looking great, but probably looking like a bit of sideways sort of action, a bit of choppiness, a couple of days before it decides. But watch out for that close. Even on a 4-hour time frame, if we're closing below about 58,200, say, then I suggest it's probably going to be a bit of lookout below. Don't know that there's enough support in here to hold it up. Just not enough buyers. All right, I think that's enough for today. 37 minutes. All right, fairly comprehensive look at it, hopefully. I'll talk to you. Oh, there won't be one tomorrow. I think the weekends are probably going to be pretty dull again. We've had bugger all volume on weekends lately, so probably the grind up, I would say, over the weekend. This is good. Good retracement, not a lot of volume. Not too sad about seeing this. So looking like short term up is the play on Bitcoin, which will probably see Solana and a few others follow, I would suggest. Bit of stopping volume so far on Solana. Not a bad retest of the 200 here either. Good. If tomorrow we see a tick up back into this bullish control zone on Solana, it would suggest that overall the market's probably going to find some support, but breaks below these 200s, some good ones. Not looking good. Matic just looks like it wants to shit the bed. Be blunt. But yeah, most of the altcoins do at the moment. They haven't been real happy. This is actually, DOT is an interesting one. I didn't see that the other day. So if you look at this as a head and shoulders here on the daily, at break and retest, I'd be very surprised if DOT finds support here for any amount of time, which kind of would support the fact if we say, okay, Bitcoin's going to go a little bit further up, retest the 20 EMA, and then come back down. It looks like DOT is probably, if Bitcoin does that, DOT will probably go a little bit sideways and then drop as well, which if that head and shoulders plays out, which they don't always do, but if this one does, you're looking at, looking at probably finding support around that $3.50, $3.60 mark. Yeah, that's going to be a very critical level for DOT, I would think. Probably not a bad buying opportunity if you believe in that project. So maybe keep an eye out for that. I think the alts could potentially show the overall direction for Bitcoin. Yeah, the fact they haven't broken out yet. Short term up, maybe, and it might only be 4 hours, 5 hours, but shorter time frames are going to really be the key at the moment, I think. That looks like it wants to retest the 200. Okay. Have a good day and have a good weekend. And if I see something interesting, I might drop in here, but I'm so fucking busy at the moment. I'm probably going to be working most of the weekend anyway. All right. Catches.